Hello, everyone. This is Andy coming to you from a slightly more springy United Kingdom.
Hello, everybody, and I'm your other host, Scott, coming to you from the Great White North, where winter has dug in its claws and refuses to let go.
Such a shame, especially as we're doing a theme on spring cleaning and we're continuing that. This is the Tea and Timbits podcast, global perspectives on business development to help you prosper. And as I mentioned, we're continuing our theme on spring cleaning. And this week we're going to be focusing on spring cleaning your pipeline. So we will be talking about that in just a moment. But first, Scott has a story for us.
Indeed. And just to clarify, we're talking about your sales pipeline and cleaning up your CRM. I didn't want anybody to be confused with the topic having changed to any other kinds of pipelines. Yes, my story is about accountability. So we both believe, I know, in having a process to support accountability. Accountability partnerships are very healthy and useful in that sense, and I know that in many ways you act as an accountability partner for me, Andy. We talk on the regular about some of the things that I'm trying to get done to make sure that I'm reporting that to somebody else, and we have a small group that of like-minded colleagues that do that with us. The reason I wanted to tell a short story about this, though, is because I've been working on some business planning and some business evolution, and I was kind of going down a path of clarity. I was like, "Yep, this is what needs to happen and how it needs to go." And I've been talking to you to a certain degree about this, and I've been talking to others that are a little bit more closer to me here. And I tell you, the difference in opinion, sort of, or feedback or contribution. Now, listen, a class accountability structure isn't there to give you advice or guidance, although that's a nice benefit that comes from having these kinds of structures in place. But it got me thinking that, boy, if I actually didn't socialize this professionally with more than just one or two people, I would only ever hear the same kind of perspective on repeat. And so it's really, I think, helped me just critically evaluate the right way to approach the planning that I'm doing at the moment. So I wanted to share that and just kind of emphasize the value of there's accountability structures that are good to just make sure you do the things you need to do, and then there's sort of like collaboration or advice that ends up coming from a lot of these ecosystems as well. And just be careful that you are getting a diverse set of opinions and perspectives on that, so it's not a bit of an echo chamber, which was a nice consequence of being able to have a few people in my network that were letting me share these things with them. So there you go.
Excellent reflection, excellent advice. I think people can definitely benefit from that on their social media activity as well, as people very often seem to seek out identical information to validate and ratify their own opinions, as opposed to actually being open to alternative opinions or actually engaging in real discussions. It's a bit scary out there sometimes, and I'm not a social media addict, so sometimes I'll just go in and watch it and go, nope, I'm still not interested in this, and just step back from it again.
Well, I do think that that's a good point too, right? Like we look to confirm our opinions and our biases, and I think that when you are hearing a critical voice, you owe it to yourself not necessarily to agree, but also not to feel like you need to defend your position. But
no, exactly.
Boy, so much value comes just from listening. And
yeah, that's right. And learning about other people's perspectives, experiences, ideas, why they see things in a different way. There's so much value in that. So much.
And if you're nodding along and don't worry that it's being confused for agreement. It's like, it's understanding. It's like, yep, okay, I understand what you're saying. Like, if you feel compelled to debate it or get into a healthy discussion about it, so be it. But I think we've lost a lot of that. Just being like, right, I guess that is kind of one way of looking at it. I understand what you're saying. I happen to see it from a different perspective and come to conclusions, but it's good to see that other side of it. So, I mean, I'm not quite talking about such a polarizing scenario that made me tell my story, but I think it just underscores the benefit you get from, sharing your thoughts and socializing some of those plans.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I'm very happy to say that within my friend groups and professional networks, I have a real diverse group of people who have very differing opinions to me about politics,
Right.
about religion, about life in general. And that's great.
Business.
We're still friends, we're still colleagues, and it's not a problem, and it's perfectly fine. But if you look at social media, you end up being convinced that it's not okay to have differing opinions, and yet in reality, it is. It's absolutely fine, and it's good. It's healthy. You don't have to agree with each other, and part of that, of course, is making sure that you have a healthy pipeline in your business. Really rubbish link there, but what the hell? Yeah, it's so important. If you don't have a healthy pipeline in your business, then I'm sorry, everything else is going to drag you down, because you're going to be mentally
the more
unhappy.
Opportunities you can have in your pipeline, the more activity it looks like you're able to manage, and the more impressed your manager will be.
That too. But joking aside, genuinely, it's like the other stuff that I was saying. If you surround yourself with chaos, then you will have a chaotic mind, which will make you more stressed, which will make it very, very difficult for you to actually handle any conflict or any disagreements. And so in a chaotic mindset, you are unable to consider alternatives. And so you are very stuck in your own way. And so having an organized pipeline is a very good part of that, because then you feel comfortable and confident that the business is flowing in the direction it should do, in the way that it will work. You know that you're doing the right things in the right way with the right people. And you know that you can then seek to learn more knowledge, get broader experiences, and provide greater value to your customers, your colleagues, and your management.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So how, Scott, before I go off on one about how to organize a pipeline, what are your perspectives? I'm happy to talk about this for hours, but we don't have hours. So I'm going to give you a chance, and then I'll see what I have left and I want to fill in.
All right, we'll cue it up. Like, what can I tell you? What do you want to know?
No, well, I mean, everyone has a pipeline. Hopefully everyone listening to this has a pipeline of some sort, right? If you don't, get one and listen to this episode again about how to actually put one together. However, we're going to assume that everybody listening to this has a level of professionalism and already has some sort of pipeline in place. How would you how would you define a healthy pipeline?
Okay, so I'll try not to monopolize the rest of the discussion here. The biggest mistake that I see when because we help people put pipelines together and set up CRM, is they just turn on the tool and they use the structure that comes out of the box. Listen, it's not the worst thing that you could do, but
especially if you're going from no structure at all to some sort of structure, then that's a positive thing.
But ideally, you figure out your business structure first, and then you find the tool that matches the structure, or you modify the tool to fit your structure.
Correct.
And that's the first thing, is what are the stages in my pipeline, and do they correlate to my sales process, as opposed to, well, now I have a tool, let me build a sales process, right? So again, not the worst thing if that's where you start, and we've helped sort of businesses evolve from there. But the first thing is to understand what the stages in the pipeline mean, and have an intentional understanding of the triggers and the indicators for when a deal is in a new stage of the pipeline. so often people just kind of move it ahead optimistically. They're like, well, I've had a couple of conversations and now it's been in here longer, so it must be more likely or must be warmer. Absolutely not. So the first thing is have very measurable, very quantifiable identifiers that shift a deal from one position in the pipeline, one stage to the next. I could go on and give examples, but I'll leave the point there. So that's step one. Step two is critically evaluating whether or not it needs to move out of its current position, and fully understanding that it can move backwards. So there are points in which deals go, whoops, we thought we had stronger alignment, higher certainty, whatnot. Something changed. A new person came into the deal, time, business dynamics, market, whatever. We've had people get sick in the middle of it, and then the whole thing falls apart and takes months to get back on track. So we move it back down in the pipeline. So having a process in place for pipeline evaluation where you analyze every single deal on the regular to know whether or not it still deserves to be where it is. And the second, sorry, what number am I at? Third
now. Third.
is yeah, is every single opportunity must have activity. Mm-hmm. If it doesn't, then it is inherently needs to change. It needs to move position. Now, you can have a clear accountability, a clear understanding, an upfront understanding with your prospect that we're going to keep it here because XYZ, and we're not going to reconnect for 2 months. I mean, that's fine, but that's an intentional understanding. But if it's just kind of sitting there and you're like, well, let me try following up again, or, they said they were going to back to me, but they didn't, well, that kind of lack of information is information, and that is going to move it likely back down or out of the pipeline. And the final thing I'll say then is you have to be relentless about what is quality opportunity that even deserves to be in the pipeline.
Yeah.
Just because you mark it as closed lost does not mean you can't go dig it back out of the archive and activate it again.
Exactly. Things change. And this is all part of that pipeline audit. But as you correctly said, 3 key things that you need to have in place, regardless of whether you're doing a reflection and a spring cleaning or you're building it from scratch, are those, you've got to define what those pipeline stages are. Mm-hmm. You've got to basically understand what your qualification criteria is, and you've got to make sure that there's you're tracking the engagement, the activity, and prioritization of the opportunities in the pipeline, really.
Yeah.
In terms of the spring cleaning, go back and make sure that you're doing all of those 3 things, if nothing else. But also audit those existing opportunities and, identify where they now fit in this criteria, where they actually really are in those stages. Make sure that the data and everything that's in there is good. And you're reflecting on the activity that's taken place, and that you have something that you mentioned earlier as well. I think we should bring into this is that you're putting in some sort of alignment with the other members of the team who are affected by the opportunities, and that there's an accountability to yourself and to the other people involved, and to the customer or the prospect. So accountability is very, very important in there. And if possible, if you're using a tool like a CRM, then that you're utilizing all of the automation tools as well that are available to you to help keep an eye on this and keep it on track, I'd say.
So I'll just respond to two things that you said there. Sort of one is sharing this with the team involved. Now, listen, that does not mean just your internal team.
No, exactly.
And this is something that's come from my business coach, my sales coach. is tell the prospect where the deal sits in your own pipeline. It's the best way for them to help you qualify the deal. Hey, listen, it sounds to me like we're here. And if we do, a few more things, it would increase in likelihood. But if I don't hear these things, it would decrease in likelihood. Help me evaluate where I should place this in my own pipeline. And they will help you. I mean, they have approached you to begin with, or maybe you did some outbound work, but they've engaged in a conversation about needing your service, your product, or whatever. And it's their time as much as it is your time, and they don't want you hounding them, calling them, emailing them, trying to get traction when none is to be found. So I will do that all the time. Is say like, oh, by the way, listen, we seem to have lost momentum on here. I've got this marked in this stage of my pipeline, and I share at the beginning what stages we have in our pipeline. I will say at the very beginning of the conversation, hey, listen, here's how we usually go through the process, and here's how our pipeline works. And I move you up, and we move, or not you, but I move the opportunity in the conversation, and I reflect that appropriately so that when it comes out of the pipeline at the end, ideally we're collaborating together. We've got resources in place because we knew what was coming and we understand the size of the deal and yada, yada, yada. And so being able to track this makes sure that we can start on the best foot that we possibly can. Yeah. And boy, does that make managing your pipeline that much easier. So sharing all of this, including with your prospect, with your customer, I find to be tremendously valuable.
Yeah, definitely.
You also mentioned automation. So one of the things that a good, well-configured CRM will do for you is help you calculate probability of or likelihood of completing the deal and then valuing your pipeline. That kind of calculation is very useful and valuable to the business. I have talked to other sales leaders who independently track position in the pipeline, where we are in the stage, the evolution of closing a deal, and probability, the weighting that they give to realizing the dollar value at the end of the day. Those are two separate data points that they're tracking through the CRM, and I couldn't disagree with that kind of approach more. That means that you're using the pipeline stage management just to track the fact that you completed
a task,
tasks that you've defined in your sales process. Make that a checklist. Put that on the opportunity. Set it up as a checkbox to say, yes, I did these things. But you need different indicators to know that the deal is becoming more and more likely, and you need to move it through different stages, and you need to let the system do the calculation. You can set the probability manually in each stage, but once you've been doing this for a while, you have a collection of data, and you can historically analyze what is the actual value of a deal once it hits a certain stage. Just put that number in. It does require that you've been running this for a little while to get data to be able to do that analysis. But when you said automation and whatnot, it brought that story back to my mind and thought I'd emphasize.
That's very, very relevant. It's a very good point. And again, if you go too far down that automation line, then that's when you lose sight of things. That's when you lose track of things. And someone goes to you, so tell me, how's it happening with deal XYZ? You have to go into your CRM and see what your system is telling you, rather than you're actually involved in it. And you should know where you are with all of your opportunities and everything in your pipeline. You should know that. You shouldn't be relying on the tool to tell you. You should be telling the tool. The tool's helping you to take care of some of those admin tasks to facilitate the progress of the opportunity on your behalf, but they are not to replace you in the process. And if you actually allow a tool to replace you, then your management will allow the tool to replace you too. So not a good idea.
Yep. There you go. I think that's a pretty good summary of good spring cleaning for your pipeline. Did we leave anything out? Got anything to add that came to mind?
I think we've been very clear. I think we've given people a few things to think about, and certainly I'm going to just double check that I'm, living what I'm preaching as well. So I'll be doing this actual spring cleaning. That's in my agenda for tomorrow. So I will actually be doing this. So it was definitely worth doing. Thank you very much, Scott. If you are listening and you want help with spring cleaning your own work environment or your pipeline or anything else, go to tandtimbits.com, get in touch with us and listen to some old episodes, and maybe even watch us on YouTube, as I believe that's where we're being broadcast now as well. So you get to...
I need to do some spring cleaning on that
Yeah, okay. Anyway, I believe we're on there, and if you want to look at us talking to each other and such things please you, you can do that. But if not, just listen to us talking, because that's where the fun is.
All right,
Thank you very much, Scott. Been a pleasure, as always.
Indeed.